Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting iStaging talk. Today, I'm your host, Stefan, and I am very honored to be joined today by architect and associate professor Salih Ceylan from, and I'm going to try to pronounce this university name correctly, Bahçeşehir University, Faculty of Architecture and Design in Turkey. If I didn't say that correctly, I apologize. You mentioned, Salih, that it is one of the hardest names to pronounce in Turkey, university names. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you a lot, Stefan, and you did a great job about the pronunciation. Believe me, people don't be close to it anyway. So, good job. And thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me in the first place.
No problem, absolutely. So I'm really excited to talk to you about all kinds of stuff, obviously architecture and design and education and immersive technologies. But before we do that, a few household items. So let us know if you can hear and see us okay. So you can mention that in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. And feel free to put any questions there as well. So if you do have any questions for us or for Salih or for myself, then you can put them there, and we have some time for a live Q&A at the end of today's session. Yeah, let's just dive right in and see where the conversation takes us. First, maybe Salih, you can start by sort of telling us a little bit about your background and how you became interested in architecture and how you turned that into a career, and maybe how that eventually led you to a role of professor or associate professor at a university.
Well, thank you, first of all. And actually, just like many architects, my story also began when I was a teenager. It's in the same way in most architects, we have some kind of, let's say, intention or dream to be a designer or an architect. I was interested also when I was a teenager in observing the environment, taking photos, drawing, sketching, developing ideas for revising the environment, etc. And that led me to the architecture school at the end of 90s. And after that, honestly, the next 25 years ran so fast, and I am where I am right now. I really need to make up my mind to summarize that period. It was a long period when you see it, but it ran very fast. So after receiving the bachelor in architecture, I pursued my further education with master's and PhD, and simultaneously I practiced architecture in the industry. I worked in several offices, constructions, etc. And in 2017, I received my PhD, and after that, I turned my face towards the academy. I started in this same university, and because I had a big interest in research and education, and since then, I have been working on developing new methods and approaches that combine education, digital technologies, and innovation in architecture for a better educational and professional environment. And that led me to where I am right now, actually, to these, let's say, academic or administrative positions I received.
Yeah. So actually, just thought of a question, and this might be a little bit of a general question, but for people that are not in architecture, this could be a genuine thing. What on a daily basis does an architect really do? Like we obviously we have a general idea, but let's say you work at a company. Are you mainly at an office drawing? Are you out in the field doing something? Are you designing? What does the majority of your day look like as an architect?
Actually, first of all, I need to say we sleep less than normal people. We use nights as effective as possible to work on our ideas and on the designs we have and everything. And the most remarkable thing about architects, starting from the education phase, I think, is that the eyes are always open, literally. It's there very close for a little time by sleeping a few hours maybe, but otherwise you always have your eyes around yourself, on the built environment, on the natural environment to get some inspiration, to, let's say, to revise it, to change it. So you have a critical eye as an architect. As a professional, of course, the, let's say, corporate life is not very different. You go to the office, work on the projects and everything, but the, let's say, perspective of a designer is something else. What actually you achieve from the architecture education, in my opinion, and that's the critical point of architectural education that gives the student that kind of perspective in a positive way, in a good way.
Interesting. So it's really a lot of it is also actually, that makes a lot of sense, that a lot of it is about visualization in a way, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
The very big part of the work is actually to transfer your imagination to other people. Of course, when I'm talking about designing, revising the environment, adding things, removing things, that happens in your mind, in your imagination. But the representation of that is the most critical thing, because if you cannot explain your idea, and if you can't present your idea to others, it doesn't have any value. You are what people understand of you, or what people make out of you. So that's very important to have a, let's say, an effective way of visualization for the, let's say, people, for the other people, for your professors, for your colleagues, or for your customers. It doesn't matter. So you need to explain yourself, and that makes the visualization a very important thing in architecture.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you, most of the time, probably you're explaining this to people that don't think the same way as you do. They don't have the mind of an architect. They don't see things the same way, right? They don't know the details. So you have to, like me, you would have to explain it to me, and you explaining it probably won't, like, it won't register for me. But if you can somehow show this to me or explain it in a really simple way, that would be the key. That's really fascinating. But I think that goes for probably a lot of businesses in general. Like, if you can simplify it, like, as much as possible, and like, that's what they usually say. You know, if you can explain it to a child and they understand it, you're on the right track. Like, yes.
That's the most challenging, one of the most challenging things in architecture also. Actually, it was much harder in the, let's say, past, because we had less instruments, but now we are more, let's say, comfortable that we have a lot of different ways to express ourselves and to make it, let's say, to bring it down that anyone can understand it.
Yes.
In visualization and representation.
Yeah, exactly. So you actually founded VR Lab. Now, could you tell me what, why you decided to, or what it is, and why you decided to found or get that started, VR Lab, and then why you went into the direction of virtual reality in general?
At this point, I need to mention that I was, and actually, honestly speaking, I'm still a computer games enthusiast. I've been playing computer games or console games since I was, I don't know, 8, 10 years old. So I have been following the technological advancements in that industry from I was a child.
Yeah.
I know the very first, let's say, gaming computers, first PCs and everything. So it is a very big interest for me. And actually, currently, gaming industry is actually the factor that is pushing the limits of the virtual reality technologies. And after some experience, I saw that VR has a lot of benefits for architecture and related fields, of course. I can mention two of them, actually. Firstly, it provides advanced visualization and takes it to another level by offering a one-to-one scale immersive experience, just like in the physical world. And this is a big advantage for architecture, also for construction and real estate businesses. And today's architecture students need to be aware of this opportunity and build their professional growth upon that situation. And secondly, it helps designers to recognize space in a different way. Existing methods like sketching, digital modeling, or technical drawing, or physical modeling all help, of course, designers to explain themselves to some extent. But adding some instrument like this, as I mentioned, that offers an immersive experience, provides a total new approach to this, let's say, set of skills. And it would be a very good idea. So those were my main, let's say, motivations, what made me, let's say, interested in virtual reality in architecture.
So, would you consider, because I probably have an idea, but VR is still probably not that common in architecture, is it? Like, if you go to any sort of architecture, or any type of office or something like that, it's unlikely. What would be the percentage? Do you have an idea of people that are using it in some sort of way?
It is quite uncommon still.
Yeah.
People are interested in it, but most of them, even architects or the architectural offices, don't know how to use it effectively. Actually, some of them are not even, let's say, aware of it, but
Mm.
most of the ones that are aware of it don't know how to, let's say, use it effectively. So it's in the, let's say, still in the very initial phases that it goes more, let's say, into the architectural environment.
So
Uh,
is that because people don't know sort of how to create anything in VR, or is it I don't know what to do with it once I have it? Like I can have this toy, but then or this toy technically, I don't know how to use this. Like where do you think the issue is?
Actually, both of them, I guess, both
Okay.
of them.
Okay.
Uh, Actually, it reminds me of my own, let's say, times when I was a student. Actually, when I was a student in the, let's say, end of 90s, the 2D drafting, namely AutoCAD, was becoming very popular, and people started to use AutoCAD instead of hand drawings for the technical drawing, for the 2D drafting.
Yes.
It started to become mainstream. When I graduated, you needed to have the knowledge of AutoCAD or skills to use AutoCAD to find a job or to, let's say, uh, finish projects effectively because
Yeah.
it has many advantages. At that time, the, let's say, 3D modeling was not very common. Only a few people did it, and it was very precious or very, let's say, extremely valuable. So few people know it. And when we come to the, let's say, 2010s, 3D modeling becomes, let's say, more common. It's a must in the projects you present. The customers require that they request 3D models, 3D, let's say, renders from them. So it started to, let's say, increase in quality, had many more, let's say, alternative software and stuff like that. And nowadays, other, let's say, more immersive technologies or developed technologies are in the market that are in developing phase. Virtual reality is one of them, and that is actually one of the technologies that comes with, let's say, most of the requirements, like the headset itself. So
Yes.
you can just do it with a software. You don't. It's not enough just to have a computer. It's not enough just to have the skills. You also need to have the hardware for it. So that's the, let's say, point where VR is, let's say, less rapidly growing than the other technologies in architecture.
Yeah. Is because you mentioned AutoCAD, is that still a software that is used on a daily basis by architects, or has that been replaced by 3D modeling software, or are those?
It is still being used. It's not
Okay.
replaced, but it has also changed a lot. AutoCAD itself,
Yeah.
the company that owns the AutoCAD also owns many different 3D modeling software, BIM software, BIM, building information modeling software and stuff. So it changed its perspective also a lot. But now we are on the, let's say, threshold where it will be replaced by the building information modeling software. I don't know if you are familiar with it.
Well,
It's called
I've
BIM
heard of it, yes, but I don't know the details. Yes.
or BIM. Actually, uh, like I said, it offers a lot more than just 2D drafting.
Mm.
They actually built a virtual copy of the whole design. If you can manage to do it, of course, you can build a virtual copy of the building from the construction phase to the post-occupancy phase, even. You can even measure the building's energy performance or electricity consumption or water consumption and stuff like that. So it's, let's say, includes all the features and characteristics of the building. You can overlap mechanical structure, infrastructure with electrical infrastructure, see if there are any errors. You can test the energy performance based on the building's orientation, the materials on the facade, geographical location, etc. So they are actually literally a virtual copy of the building itself, where you can see everything about it before it is even constructed. So they give a lot of different, let's say, benefits. And students, actually, I'm taking from the, let's say, educational perspective, like it very much also, those softwares, because they offer, of course, when you, let's say, model the building in a good way, all the technical, let's say, drawing set, the plans, sections, elevations, everything all together. So students like it so much. Of course, it's not the way they, let's say, think about it. It's much more comprehensive than that. But for the, let's say, in AutoCAD, simply 2D drafting, you only draw the plan of the building. Then you need to draw the section. Then you need to draw the elevation, and you need to build the whole set manually. But in these BIM software, you only model the whole thing, and then you can simply take any plan, any floor plan, any section, any elevation. Even nowadays, they even present advanced visualizations, including immersive VR, thanks to their, let's say, connections with rendering software, other connected software, or some game engines like the Unity or Unreal.
Right.
They add it to their, let's say, program as add-ons or patches, or let's say have some common formats that are, let's say, bringing them together. So BIM software is much, let's say, being more dominant in the market nowadays, and it will be much more in the future. Even some, let's say, governments or, let's say, municipalities nowadays require BIM model of the building instead of just 2D draftings.
Right. Okay. So that's actually interesting, because based on what you just said, the jump from that to, let's say, something more immersive, right? Whether that would be VR or some sort of, something that you can visualize online, doesn't seem to be as big. I get it from like if like 20 years ago or something like that, or 15 years ago, AutoCAD, yes, that's a big jump, right? To VR. But now with the advancements with BIM or BIM software, it seems to be that should be a relatively small jump, but then the uptake is not as big just yet. Yeah, even though I guess, like you said, presentation and visualization is key, I guess, crucial. Yeah. So how do you usually, how would they usually do that? Like, how would I usually, like I have to go and present what I've created or the idea that I've got. What is it that you would usually, what would you teach your students in that sense?
Actually, it is not anymore one single software or one single method. There are so many alternatives and so many, let's say, skills you need to have to have a really impressive representation of what you do.
Okay.
You need to
a combination of different things.
Yeah, it starts from the, let's say, research phase. Even while researching or analyzing what you are going to design, you need to use several, let's say, tools that help you to, let's say, collect examples, find inspirations, research the background. There are so many, let's say, software, for example, not software, but websites that provide the historic maps of the areas, or some, let's say, weather analysis, geographic analysis, so many, let's say, digital tools that you can even use in the first phase of the design before even starting designing the building. Then you need to continue for a, let's say, more, let's say, innovative perspective with something, let's say, that involves parametric design or generative design. These are the new terms in architecture that, let's say, algorithmic design, that include artificial intelligence in the, let's say, design phase.
Okay.
And the software, you just, let's say, input the, let's say, your requirements, some, let's say, factors, or let's say some data, and the software gives you, I don't know, 50 alternatives for that are meeting those criteria, and you select from them, and then you continue. Maybe eliminate most of them and put it down to 5. Then you need to transfer it to this, let's say, BIM software, where you create this virtual copy of the building. After you have that, you need to, let's say, that's the point where you are getting in touch with the client, customer, professor, I don't know, whoever is on the other side, where you have this, let's say, need to effectively visualize your design. You can still use the, let's say, still renders. They're so, let's say, advanced today that it's even, let's say, you cannot understand if this is real picture or just a render.
Yeah,
So
correct.
realistic renders. You can do some, let's say, animations, or you can just transfer everything into virtual reality where people really experience what they will get in the future without even having the constructions, or without even, let's say, having any other, let's say, technical element in front of them. Just put on the HMD, the glasses, and they, let's say, are in that world at that point. So it's amazing, I think, for the, let's say, future of architecture. Not only architecture, maybe also for construction, also for real estate.
Yeah.
So it will be a big game changer also, I think. At this point, some people, some companies started to use it also with those purposes, but it's still in a very initial phase, I think.
Yeah. So I want to move to some of the stuff that you actually did, how we got to know each other, that you did with iStaging. So it was actually because of sort of virtual exhibitions that, or a virtual exhibition that you wanted to create a few years ago now, specifically during COVID. So actually a two-part question that I've got. First, maybe could you give us a little bit of background on how that kind of came about? And then the second part is, which is maybe even more interesting, after COVID, a lot of businesses that also with, that did a lot of stuff with iStaging and maybe with other companies, everyone needed to go virtual almost instantly overnight. And then COVID was over, and there was a period where everyone did everything physically again because they were sick of anything that was virtual, which is normal, right? It kind of, if you only have one option, then you kind of go back. And now, in some cases, you have a bit of a hybrid model. But in your case, you specifically continued with what you did or created during COVID. So the second part of that question would be why? Like, what's the reason why you continue with that virtual aspect of it? But before that, maybe a little bit of background on how it all started.
Okay, let me start with the background of the issue.
Yeah.
Like I said, my interest on virtual reality started before the pandemic, and ours, let's say, the foundation of the VR lab was before the pandemic, but not very long ago, before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And when we had the pandemic, the situation, everyone at home, it's not possible anymore to do the, let's say, physical exhibitions, everything. And it was very important for us to share the work of our students. And the, let's say, education did not stop. So I thought, why would we stop with the exhibitions? We should do that just like we do with the classrooms and, let's say, with our presentations or virtual studios and everything. We can also do the exhibition in a virtual format. So I started to think about it, how we can, let's say, make it real. I bumped into some, let's say, different options. And yes, at the end, we found iStaging providing a lot of different, let's say, alternatives for the presentations. Even it was, let's say, very flexible with what you present, that, let's say, you present it in a, let's say, with a multimedia, with some videos, animations, some, let's say, elements that are, let's say, dynamic, not only pictures, because in physical exhibitions, even it's not easy to add some, let's say, multimedia to the presentation. You just put a poster print it out and put the poster over there. Adding something else, an animation, a video, something like that is really hard, and it needs hardware, it needs time, energy, and stuff. But in this one, we could a lot of different, let's say, multimedia or different tags, information, explanation, anything about the, let's say, products the student had. So we, let's say, decided with iStaging to continue, and it was, let's say, very effective, I think, because it was a new approach. There were a lot of, let's say, virtual exhibitions, but they weren't that much, let's say, interesting or immersive. It was just, let's say, on, I don't know, on Pinterest, collecting the posters and putting them on the Pinterest and kind of labeling them as an exhibition. Or we could even see, I also explored some museums that said they have a virtual exhibition, but also it was about putting their collections into a web page. So it was not as, let's say, interesting or attractive as I thought about. So I thought we are architects, we can design spaces, we can even design virtual spaces. So why not design the virtual spaces and apply all the student works in that, let's say, virtual exhibition. It was very successful, I guess, and we are continuing since then. And why we continue even after the pandemic, actually, I can understand actually why people want to get back to the old normal after the concerns about the pandemic were gone. We have a lot of bad memories about those days. Of course, many people lost their lives. Moreover, for the others, being stuck in a room with no one around, not being able to go to the places you like. So there are so many negative things we think about the pandemics, and these online meetings or virtual events remind us of those bad days, I think, we experienced. And in my opinion, even in these worst things, you need to look on the bright side. So we took the, let's say, positive side, bright side of it. And as the university and the faculty, actually, we have a global approach, and we have potential students from all around the world, not only from our city, from other places. And apparently we cannot reach them using the traditional methods, physical exhibitions, and it's hard to explain ourselves. And virtual exhibitions help a lot about reaching people in distance. Additionally, from a practical perspective, it is much more sustainable virtual exhibition and easier to prepare than physical exhibitions. That way you don't have to print all those stuff, which will be waste material after the exhibition's over. Or in a physical exhibition, like I mentioned, it's really hard, for example, a video to the presentation. You can only add one maybe to a place where you have a big screen or something. And it's not that effective because of the physical limitations. The room is too bright, the room is too noisy. I don't know, there should be any physical limitations. But in a VR exhibition, we can easily add animations to each exhibited student project, for instance. Or we can focus on any project or the user wants to. Besides, you can easily make revisions, updates to the exhibition. So it has many advantages. So we keep on going with it. And I think we will keep on going further in the following years.
It was such an interesting perspective. I've never actually heard anyone say that about the negative feelings that people may associate with sort of a virtual meeting, because that kind of all started during a time where a large majority of the world was just sort of depressed and unhappy. So that really interesting. I've never actually thought about it that way. And then obviously I think it's great that you said, okay, you know what, there were actually positive things about this. We should take those instead of just thinking, let's forget about that entire period, which is great. And when it comes to sort of exhibitions in general, what we've seen, obviously, I agree with everything you said in terms of all the benefits of it, and obviously, because I believe in virtual stuff. But when it comes to event organizers, for example, there's obviously also a lot of money involved in doing the physical stuff. The physical event. That's how they generate their money. So there's less benefit in creating something virtual. Like that just takes away, what I'm really trying to achieve to get people in here physically in this particular space. So I think again, there should be a balance, right? There should be a balance of the two. That's probably optimal. Instead of one or the other, it's not one or the other. I think a combination of the two is most of the time the best. But finding that is complicated, is often difficult. So in terms of the feedback that you've gotten from students in general, like how was that?
Actually, it was very positive. It was even more positive than I expected. So, firstly, the visitors of the virtual exhibition were very attracted to it. Our, let's say, target audience at this point is students who are, let's say, preparing for the university, or who are, let's say, who to university exams and who are going to be in the university. So they are 19, 20 years or 18 years old students. And they are actually born into a digital world, and they like it a lot. And they have something, let's say, that can reach very easily on their mobile phones and attractively explore around, see new things, especially if they see some things that they are already interested in. We are, let's say, mostly targeting students who are, let's say, thinking about architectural education. They see examples of what they can do in the future right in front of their eyes, easily from their mobile phones, and in a very, let's say, attractive way. Not just a list of projects and you click on them and something like that. You see it, we even put some 3D models of the, let's say, work in there, and you can see those models from different perspectives. You see the posters, you see the animations, you see a lot of stuff about one single project. And actually, when you want to walk around the exhibition to explore everything, it would be maybe more than 1 hour to see everything. So it is very, very, let's say, furnished virtual exhibition.
Yes.
So we had all the times very good feedbacks from the students, from the visitors. Again, thanks to iStaging, we were able to, let's say, follow those feedbacks. We have these, let's say, that was unexpected for us actually. We have these analysis part where we see how many people visited, how many people give a thumbs up, or how many people make a, let's say, comment about it. And we had a lot of visitors, more than 10,000 people in the course of time, which is a great number for us, because if we had physical exhibitions, it could be maybe a few hundred.
Yeah.
Our students, our teachers, academic staff, students, relatives, friends, something like that, not more than a few hundred. But right now, it's, let's say, 100 times more people we reached with our virtual exhibition, which is amazing. And we could also get, like I said, comments from the people, from the visitors. And we all get, let's say, positive comments about the projects done by the students and also about the virtual exhibition itself. So it was appreciated by the visitors a lot. One very important thing for me is that our students who took part in the virtual exhibition were also very, let's say, excited about it, excited about being a part of it, that their projects were exhibited in such a nice, let's say, virtual exhibition. And they always ask me how they can do more, how they can contribute more to this, let's say, preparation phases. How can we, let's say, help about doing this, or how can we, let's say, contribute with maybe our other projects and everything. So it makes the students also very, let's say, excited about this process, which is for the future very beneficial. They are aware of these technologies, and they are aware that something like this can be done. Even from our graduates, I get very, let's say, positive feedbacks, and they come to me asking, how can I bring this knowledge to my professional life? What should I do next? How can I, let's say, introduce VR into my office, into this office I work in? So they want to stand out with this new technology, which is very important, I think. So they will be the pioneers of VR in architecture in the future.
That's awesome. That's really really great to hear. I think that's probably the click, right? Also for universities, if you hear students and they're actively going out and saying, actually, how can I do more of this, or how can I be more involved? You're on the right track. Okay, this is where we need to go. Like this is the direction we need to go into. Yeah, which is that's really awesome. So Salih, let's think ahead, maybe 20 or 25 years from now. Before I ask that question, I don't know if you have experienced or seen anything related to the Apple Vision Pro headset. It's the newest headset from Apple, that they launched a little while ago, and obviously AR VR headset. They don't use those words specifically, but it is an AR VR headset, and really really great. I've had the pleasure to try that multiple times and to provide hundreds of demos to people at different exhibitions actually, and really intuitive. Like eye tracking and just with touch. And I remember years ago you would have a headset and you had to do that specifically in front of your head to click on something. It's like really, yeah, 3 minutes would go by before you select something. That's all gone now. And with this new headset, one of the things is obviously people are trying to figure out now, how do we use this? What do we do with it? Right? The technology is so smooth and so cool, and it's so high quality that you don't get dizzy anymore, and you can wear it for longer, even though the headset is still somewhat heavy. I think too heavy. But anyway, if we now think ahead, 20, 25 years, and not just maybe AR, VR, but maybe even also AI, what do you think the architectural landscape is going to look like? Like, do you have any idea of that? Or what do you hope it looks like?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Of course, it's really hard to imagine, but it's a really good, let's say, perspective in the future. Again, I need to look back before I look forward to the future. I think you remember not remember, but we have seen the, let's say, first computer built in Manchester, the size of a room, and it was, I don't know, it's just a few bits of knowledge or bits of data in it. So it came from that into the, let's say, very little mobile phones that we have today. So the technology developed so much for the, let's say, computers and everything. I think the same way about the virtual reality technologies. In this, let's say, phase, we are in the very initial steps about VR technology regarding the hardware. So after, let's say, 20, 25 years from now, I guess a VR glass will be maybe something like this that I'm wearing right now. It's a normal glass, but for the next 25 years, I hope we will not have any more those very big head-mounted displays and that heavy, that are, let's say, hard to move around with all those cables and everything. So the hardware will develop, and of course it will get more, let's say, cheaper, that everyone can reach it.
Yes.
And it becomes like that. Of course, it's just like let's say, everything affects each other. The, let's say, software development or the, let's say, requirements of the people will lead the hardware to that point, and the development in the hardware will lead also, let's say, people to use it much more common, much more easily, and something like that. And besides that, of course, like I said, there are a lot of developments in technology for architecture about artificial intelligence, that architects do not need to draw everything manually. So it will be more like, let's say, coding buildings rather than drawing buildings, I think. Architects in the future will be more, let's say, coders, programmers, rather than, let's say, operational drawers, something like that. So the let's say, daily routine of architect, let's go back to our beginning of our talk. We talked about the daily routine of an architect. Nowadays, we can imagine the daily routine of an architect in the future. I think they still will be sleeping less. I don't think that habit will change, but it will be more like, let's say, things going to happen first in your mind rather than, let's say, on the paper and pen and even on the computer screen. with the, let's say, computer-human interaction, and then it will be transferred to the other people in a similar way, again with computer-human interaction. Actually, it is going to have maybe comprehensive steps, but most of those steps will be handled by the artificial intelligence, from the, like I said, analysis phase to the, let's say, developing the initial ideas, and even to the, let's say, representation of the ideas. So the architects will be more like, I don't know, the boss of the artificial intelligence, who selects what is more, let's say, suitable for the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, the one thing that artificial intelligence cannot do, at least for the moment, and I think for the, let's say, near future, is select intuitively what is better for the, let's say, people, or for that fits better into the environment, existing let's say, historical environment or natural environment. So architect's role will be evolved into that, I think, to be like, let's say, a decision maker, from the, let's say, handyman to the decision maker, let's say.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right. I think a lot of the operational stuff that you now have to do will probably either go away or will be handled by AI. So, you will just have a much shorter time span. And yeah, like you said, you'll hopefully will be sort of the boss of AI, or telling it, what to do, and then it will be able to process things much quicker. But like you said, intuitively and emotionally making certain decisions that would be better for humanity or for people and the environment is probably going to still be up to us. Yeah, actually, this is a sort of a personal story. There is, I live obviously in Taipei, and there's a theater 5 minutes away from my home, and it's not that it's large and not old, quite new, but it's just not that pretty, honestly. Like, once it was built, it's just this big thing, and it's also they used obviously there's quite a bit of pollution in Taiwan as well. And they used material that makes it kind of look old and dirty really quickly. Whereas if they would have used either different colors or different materials, that you could mask that a little bit. But now it just looks like it's been there for forever and no one has cleaned it, even though it's been, only a few years old. I've always it's always kind of bothered me. It's like, I don't understand how you came to this particular decision. I don't know who made it, but yeah, I was like, I'm sure that like if I would ask you, you would come up with something better. But okay, that's a personal little thing that I have. But I just happen to walk past it every single day on the way to work.
Sometimes architects have much more. That's, I think, problem of architecture in very general problem, and very, let's say, a historical problem of architecture, especially after the 20th century, where the, let's say, modernist approach emerged. Architects and, let's say, non-architects, the public, sometimes don't speak the same language. People want to see what they are used to see. Architects want to, let's say, do something new, something different, something, let's say, less unusual, as from a designer's perspective. Sometimes they don't match with each other. And of course, we cannot judge. I'm not in the position of judging any architectural piece, of course, but we cannot say every architectural product is a good product, of course. Right. So it is very, very subjective. Yes. And sometimes, like I said, people's perspective and designers' perspective not all the time match, actually. Yeah. There may be some difference.
And actually, I'm also, even though that's more of a personal opinion, but I'd love to hear the thought process of the person that sort of came up with that idea, or was involved. Like, so how did this come to be, right? So instead of me judging it, I'd love to. Maybe I think you can actually go in and there's stuff about it, but like what did the decision-making process look like? It'd be lovely, just to have a conversation with like we're doing right now, which gives gives me a much better insight in the way that architects generally think, and obviously want to do something new and something cool. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't always match with what the people maybe are expecting or hoping for. But in other cases, in many cases, it's something absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. I've seen many examples of that as well, which is fantastic. Yeah,
Actually,
so
it's good to have such a debate also in the, let's say, about architecture products. It's always takes it forward to another level to have such kind of, let's say, dialogue between people and architects.
Yeah. So we've gone a little bit over time, but I have one final question for you, if you're okay, and then we'll wrap up. Looking back over your career, obviously still ongoing for a long time, hopefully, but looking back, what has been the most rewarding thing or rewarding aspect of your work generally?
Actually, of course, I think the most rewarding aspect was the appreciation from the people, from the students, from the, let's say, visitors of the VR exhibitions, from colleagues, university administration, etc. It feels very good when your work is appreciated. And as actually I do something, let's say, innovative that is not much, let's say, experienced by the people, they mostly appreciate it very well.
Yeah.
And also when people see work of exertion, they also appreciate it. And besides that, it helped me also to do what I like to do. Like I said before, I'm an enthusiast of digital technologies, digital gaming, digital technologies, and it is being a privilege for me to research them and study them as a part of my work. Actually, not many people are that lucky to do what they like so much. So working in this, let's say, field of interest, in this domain in architectural or academic way, it gave me the chances to write papers, attend conferences, and reach a lot of, let's say, nice people like yourself, Stefan. I think that's the most rewarding aspect of the work that I have been doing.
Well, that's really great. I love talking to you. I love that you've taken different from different ideas and technologies and domains. Architecture, obviously, and you talked about gaming, and then academia and education, and immersive technologies, and you put all of it sort of together. And that's usually when you do that, that's when you get really innovative sort of ideas and creative stuff happens. I think that's really great. I've heard that a few times now, that if you look a little bit broader than your own sort of bubble, that's when often sort of a breakthrough happens in any type of business or industry or even in education. So yeah. Wonderful. I don't know if there are any questions for Salih. I see that Ben mentioned something. Yeah, like obviously imagination and making sense of that for others to build it. And I'd be keen to see some of the VR spaces he has created. Yes, I don't know if we have some. I can discuss that with you, Salih, if you're open to share some of the stuff that you've done with iStaging, with some of the people that love to see it. So yeah, if there are no questions, then I want to thank you.
I don't know if you have time now for later, or if they just email me, I can.
Yeah. Let's do that via email, and we can discuss how to share and distribute that. So Salih, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation. Really insightful. Thank you to everyone who's joined today, and obviously if you haven't, then you'll be able to watch this back on YouTube and on social media. We'll share it. Thanks again, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thank you, Salih.
Thank you for inviting me, and it was also very mind-opening for me, this talk. I hope we can sometime.
All right, wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.